You're listening to the Jōrni Podcast. Could belonging be the key to healing? Unlock this episode with me now. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer. What if everything we've been told about holistic health, healing, and well-being is only part of the story? Because thriving in today's world looks different than it used to. Here, we challenge the narratives, rethink what it means to become human, and explore how that shapes the way we lead, live, and step into our full potential. This is the Jōrni Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. Holding the highest view can be a transformative concept, yet maintaining that expansive perspective requires a deeper awareness than simple positive thinking. If we learn to consistently shift our focus toward possibilities, we begin to stay more balanced and centered during unpredictable moments. Lawrence Ellyard is a visionary author, speaker, and global leader in wellness, holistic health, and professional development with more than 3 decades of experience shaping the complementary therapies landscape. He is the founder and CEO of the International Institute for Complementary Therapists. He has authored 9 influential books on Reiki, spiritual practice, and holistic business, with endorsements from His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, Dr. Masaru Emoto, and Sir Richard Branson, reflecting his impact on individual practitioners and broader wellness culture. Beyond his organizational leadership and writing, Lawrence is a transpersonal therapist, Aikido Sensei 4th Dan, and ordained minister within the Spirit of the Earth Medicine Society. He lives in Byron Bay with his children and continues to champion the evolution of wellness through education, community, and innovation. He is also the executive producer of The New Woo, a documentary exploring how ideas once dismissed as woo are now shaping the future of health, healing, and human potential, bridging alternative practice and mainstream understanding. Here is my interview with Lawrence Ellyard. Hi, Lawrence. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because we're going to be talking about something really interesting, experiencing the highest view. And I'm glad you're here to dive into that with me. I want to know more about that and what that means. So welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's great to be here and coming to you from Australia down under. So yeah, happy to share any insights and just talk about whatever is arising in the moment, because I think that's where the magic happens for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the magic of technology, the fact that we can connect across continents, across the world, so much magic in that. And with that, Lawrence, would you like to share maybe a little bit about your story or your journey, the parts of it that you feel connect to what you do today, and also let our listeners know what it is that you do today?
Yeah, for sure. So look, I've always had an interest in anything esoteric or spirituality. And even as a child, I was very dialed in with all of that. And yeah, always had a deep interest in it. So I think it was in my very early not even teens. I was 11 years old and I was introduced to meditation by my now brother-in-law. So he was the head of transcendental meditation in Australia. And so I learned TM as a child. And then it was really in my late teens, I really got involved in spirituality in a big way and felt very interested in the power of the mind and what one could do beyond what we ordinarily see, touch, and feel, and what is this other realm, this other world. And yeah, I was really lucky very early on. I had really amazing mentors and was very guided and supported, and undertook a traditional apprenticeship in shamanism in the Native American Indian tradition at 21. I also lived in a Buddhist monastery for 3 years for a time. So I studied Tibetan Buddhism and heavily involved in meditation, consciousness, all those things, and energy healing. And I've got, if I include from a child, probably nearly 40 years of martial arts experience in different styles. And of course, any of these arts, if you go deep, they have a strong spiritual component. They have a strong energetic component. Yeah, I don't know. I've just been very fortunate to train with some incredible teachers, and they've bestowed a lot of wisdom. And some of it I think over the years has finally landed in my thick skull, and I can remember some of this stuff now and start to live it. All of this stuff it's a gradual process of integration and lived experience. And then, yeah, so following all of that, I established a school in natural therapies, and then I developed a need to create an industry body for the whole wellness industry. So that's what I've been doing for the last nearly 24 years now this year, and involved in another project at the moment. We're putting together a documentary on the whole wellness industry. So yeah, lots of different things. I think I'd really classify myself as someone who's like an ideator, someone who's loves to experience ideas and creation of new things. I think that's definitely my sweet spot. Classic sort of visionary entrepreneurial type. And I have great people around me that help bring all that to reality. So that's been a real blessing to have the right people on my team to support me and to bring these things into reality. Because if it's an idea and it's not landed, then, it remains an idea. So it's where the ability to really integrate these things into the world is where we have the greatest benefit, of course. So that's always super important to have the right people.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I love hearing about your journey, so many things that you've experienced. And I'm curious if across all of these things that you tried, you lived through, you experienced, is there a theme or a pattern that you came across, whether that was martial arts, it was Buddhism, or it was meditation? People wonder in this world, why are we here? Or how do we find happiness? These basic human needs that we start wondering about once our needs like safety and food and shelter have been met. We start wondering about those. Have you found something across all of these things that you tried where you went, that's interesting. I find this in nearly everything that I experienced is something that connects all of those together.
Yeah, it's probably the next hierarchy of needs if we're looking at that model. And that's really around connection and belonging. And I think a lot of the deeper yearning in human consciousness is for this sense of where do I fit? Where's my tribe? Who are my people? So I think when people take that, they embark on that journey of finding out like what's their inner inquiry. It's super well supported by having the Sangha, the idea of the community of like-minded fellow practitioners on the way. In Tibetan Buddhism, they have that as one of the refuges. They talk about the Buddha, which is like the principle of what it is that we're wanting to aspire to become more like. And it's not considered something outsiders. It's actually like our true nature. Then they have the second refuge is in the teachings, the Dharma. And then these are the practices that help us along the way so we can achieve that goal. And then the third refuge is around Sangha, which means the fellow practitioners that support us. And that we see this model can be reflected in lots of ways, like even in business. It's like you have the goal, you have the methodology, and then you have the support people to help it, to give you accountability. So you can see these different spiritual principles played out in different hierarchies in life. Yeah, so I think the real consistent thing I've seen is like what comes from collaboration, what comes from bringing support and bringing like minds together. And we can achieve so much as individuals, but when we align with other people who have different skill sets, complementary, then we can, of course, achieve incredible things together. So, yeah, I'd say that's definitely one of the things that has shown up consistently. And I guess also the other thing around that is having the right aspiration, like having a meaningful view of contribution. How can I be of support and service to others? And I think particularly in spirituality, we can have this concept of exclusive pride. So this pride can be not such a great thing because we're thinking about what's in it for me, what do I get? Or also this idea of pride being that I'm better than others, and of course, if you're in that state of pride, then you're always in bad company, right? Because you're always comparing, you're looking at others thinking, oh, are they good as me or not? And so we're constantly trying to manage our self-image and how we're perceived. And of course, that's a huge trap because we never get anywhere with that. Yeah. So again, always in poor company. So if we look at the flip side of that, then we say, how are we great together? So that's inclusive pride. It's the idea that I'm one, the others are many, so therefore they must be more important. Yeah. And of course, if we're focusing on how we can be of contribution, then we have amazing work to do. And if we focus on our own problems or our deficiencies, then what do we have? More problems, right? So we don't actually develop very effectively, or we might be caught in a loop from the past and it doesn't actually take us anywhere because you can't change the past. The past is the past. Or the flip side, people are living constantly in the future and they miss the moment. Yeah, again, that's why we come back to presence and mindfulness about what's right here in front of our noses and what can I work? How can I be of service? Having contribution as a strong value, we have a chance to do incredible work in the world. So I think that's such an important teaching for sure.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I like how you explain that and how you link that back. I want to say also to our well-being as humans and as people who contribute and are part of a society and a world where very often we find it is divisive and not inclusive in many places. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you don't have to look far too. So just on that point, you don't have to look far. You look at social media, look at X or what used to be Twitter. So much people's flinging stuff at each other. And what does it actually contribute? It's drama, it's entertainment, and is it actually about contribution or it's divisive in nature? So it's more, okay, what can we do to celebrate what connects us all? So you see this in politics, it's incredibly divisive, yeah, or we see it in religion, it can be very divisive. If we look at experiential ways of viewing reality, then we say, okay, what can we celebrate as our commonalities? Not focusing again on what we don't have to look far to find out what separates us. But of course, that doesn't help us, or our community or the other, right? Yeah, it's looking at it through the lens of strengths focus rather than deficiency focus. Yeah. Sorry, I cut you off before, but I just wanted to bring that point home because it's so important, right? Because
absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you put that in there.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel that you've done exactly that, what you've just shared in your own communities. And of course, you mentioned complementary before, which kind of connects to your own community in that sense. Would you like to share with our listeners part of the projects that you are taking on at the moment and have been for a long time that bring into life exactly what you just shared, that sense of community, that sense of belonging, and actually working together on what connects us and what we have in common. I'm, of course, part of one of your communities as well, and I have enjoyed it for many years. So let's share that with our listeners a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So that's the incredibly long name professional body. I wish I had named it a shorter name. So it's the International Institute for Complementary Therapists. So we use the acronym IICT. And that's like a global professional body representing the whole wellness industry. And we cover 1,400 different occupations. And a lot of people think, I didn't realize there was more than 100, but there's so many. I've been spearheading that thing for nearly 24 years this year. And we've built a huge global community of supporting the people that help heal the world and all these different professions and so forth. So it's a credibility, seal that we provide and give the credentials to the people who are out there helping and serving and supporting others in their journey. That's definitely one arm. Yeah, people talk about the complementary therapies, and that is like an addition to what's already out there in traditional healing or traditional medicine, but it's about the best of both worlds. Again, when you look at different medical systems, and if it's not scientifically peer-reviewed, published, it doesn't exist in the scientific medical model. But of course, a lot of these concepts have been around for pre-medicine, right? Thousands and thousands of years, and ancient knowledge that the human animal has attained and attuned themselves to for countless generations. So if you look at modern medicine, of course, wonderful and has so many benefits. And if you happen to be in an accident on the highway and they have to scrape you off the road and put you together, like amazing, right? But there's also many other ways aside from the physicality about just health and how the mind and body are so intrinsically linked. Our good mental health will inform the physicality and vice versa. When people are really unwell, all they really think about is getting better. And of course, when they don't think about getting sick. So they just go, like no care in the world. But of course, when illness strikes, then wow, it gets our attention pretty fast. I think men in particular are pretty bad in that department. I think women are much better and braver and holding it together through physical challenge of ill health and so forth. I don't know. I think they're the stronger of the species in that regard. But yeah, I think it's important to acknowledge that when we're looking at alternative or complementary therapies, that it is a complement to traditional medicine or allopathic medicine. Like, how do we bring these two worlds together and bring credibility to the alternative or complementary therapies in the world? Because they do have a tremendous amount of credibility. And it's really like my personal mission is, how do we elevate all of these incredible thought leaders and healers and practitioners that know what they're doing and have been doing it for such a long time, and celebrating that, because it's not a separate thing. It's how they come together, for sure.
That's really absolutely incredible that you mentioned over 1,400 modalities, you said. That is incredible. I know every time I look at the list, I'm so surprised at the breadth and depth of things that is available to us for our healing journeys. Do you find in your experience, you've been doing this for a while now, that there is more demand for complementary therapies, there's more demand for alternative therapies, that this is becoming more accepted for people internationally? What has been your experience?
Yeah, there has been a huge swing towards it, particularly in the last few years. So we're seeing such a growing industry. And I think that comes from a couple of places. One, it's like people might have taken a more traditional approach and not necessarily got the answers, or they go to their doctor, they have 15 minutes to address their concern, but maybe it's a mental health issue, or maybe there's other things going on, nutrition and so forth, and more natural approaches to their wellness. And it's not usually taken into consideration. Of course, there are some doctors that are doing integrative medicine like that and looking at how do we combine. But for the most part, it's, I'll pop this pill or try this and let's see what happens. And it's very pharmaceutically driven. And again, that has its place. There's incredible breakthroughs in medicine, and we'd be probably a smaller population without them, like sinful things like that. But it's also important to say that there's so many things that we can do to look after our bodies, our minds, and the right kind of nutrition, sleep. So when you look at the rise of biohacking, like that wasn't a term 10 years ago. People didn't talk about biohacking, but now it's biohack this and biohack that. You can do cold plunge pools or use red light therapy or saunas and all this sort of stuff that, again, thousands of years, not so much the red light, I guess, like saunas and so forth. Look at all the different indigenous cultures that have done variations of this throughout the centuries. They know that there's a certain benefit from raising the internal temperature of the body, like a fever. It's going to fight off illness, disease, and it's going to cleanse the body, which it needs, all these things. So yeah, it's really interesting. And so a lot of ancient knowledge, I think, is catching on in the mainstream. And it's certainly what we're looking to do. So we're putting together a film called The New Woo. And it's like acknowledging all the woo that's out there, which isn't so woo anymore. It's becoming considered good mental health and strategies for better nutrition, sleep, and all that stuff. So I think there's, definitely an emergence of all that globally, and we're just here to keep shouting it from the rooftops and getting as many people enrolled, and to do it in a safe way, in a way that's of benefit to the people, and helping to augment that reality so it becomes more and more second nature. So it's not just, I've got to go and take something, versus maybe I just need to breathe and connect with myself, ground, or go for a walk in nature and regulate my nervous system without necessarily taking a substance or whatever it might be. I think there's many options available to us that we probably didn't have as much access to in the past as well.
Yeah, I feel that's a really important approach, as this whole person approach that we are pivoting to. And as you said, modern Western medicine certainly has its place, and many of us have had encounters with it that we may not even be here without. So absolutely. But integrating more of ourselves and all of our dimensions, mental, emotional, physical, energetic, spiritual, into our well-being, I feel is this pivot that we're coming to, that's been really important for many of us to have an actual complete healing journey. And still be on that healing journey, of course. That just wasn't possible if we were just focusing on one of the dimensions of ourselves as human beings on this planet. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I feel that's really important. And how is that doing a documentary about the well-being industry? Has that been very interesting? I feel there are so many angles to this, and also people asking a lot of questions of how do we get to these modalities? How do we ascertain that this is regulated in some way? How do we know who to trust? So how does a documentary on all of this come together from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it comes together by obviously vetting and creating people that are credible and have done incredible work in the world with what their modality or their thought leadership. And that's like working with the directors to help with the casting to bring the right people together. And obviously got well connected in this industry, so I have a fairly good nose for what's good, what's not. And I think for finding the right kinds of people, then can be just as simple as seeking the modality or what it is that you're looking for, and then checking what is the standard of that person. And you can look to reviews, Trustpilot or Google reviews or whatever it is, right? To say, okay, this person seems to be great. And then, of course, the next step is to connect and have a session or treatment or whatever it is that you're working with. And then you'll know if you click or not, because I think there's this idea that if someone's a healer or they're out there putting themselves out there, they must be amazing. But it's not always the case. Like it's like anything, there's varying degrees of quality out there and with practitioners. So I think it's good for people to still be there from the perspective of discernment. And certainly if someone's been accredited or recognized by another body, they've been vetted, so that can certainly help. And that's kind of like what we do with the IICT. But again, like you got to trust your intuition and your instinct. So I always say, come back to your body. What does your body tell you? Is your body going like, this feels like we say, does it feel like a hug or does it feel like a hell no? So does your body lean towards or do you feel repelled? And I think tuning into the body is a great way to gauge reality and have a sense of that. And I think our intellect can sometimes get in the way of that, because we might be so mentally focused, it has to be this way, or I want it to be like that. And there's so many options available and so many avenues we can take. Tuning in and slowing down and seeing what feels like connection or what feels like a positive uplift in your energy when you feel into it in your body, then that is a good indicator. I wouldn't say it's the only one, but it certainly is a good place to start.
Absolutely. I like that. I feel there's a lot of emphasis nowadays placed on the fact that intelligence has to be logical, it has to be mental, but bringing in other parts of that, bringing in the emotional intelligence, the somatic intelligence, that all helps us make better decisions that come from a place of alignment, that come from a place of that intuition that you were touching on. So I feel that's a very important part of, I think, having a life that feels aligned and a life that feels like you are living in a purpose that makes you actually feel well and has you thriving. So thank you for that. And I want to ask about this highest view, because I know that we titled the episode.
We never got to it.
And you haven't gotten into that yet. So I'm very curious, what do you mean by the highest view and how does that tie into all of the things that we've just been talking about in this episode?
No, thanks for coming back to it, because I probably just go down another rabbit hole somewhere. But so the highest view is this idea that in any situation, we can look at it through the lens of like, again, I'm not getting what I need or whatever it is, or we can think of the situation as like, where's the possibility, where's opportunity lie? Yeah. So if we think about what's missing, we get more of what's missing. And if we turn our awareness to what's possible, and curiosity, then we can open ourselves to many other ways to experience something. So life, of course, will throw calamities our way. So we're driving down the road, someone cuts us off. We can be like, oh, that guy's or whatever, right? Or we can go, oh, they must be in a hurry. I hope they get there where they need to go. So we can have this idea of compassion and this idea of saying, I don't know the other story. So rather than making a judgment or making a decision that they are bad or wrong or whatever it is, we can go, oh, I wonder what's happening for them. So I think it's like it's more than positivity, it's really like looking at the possibility in the moment, looking at what can arise and staying curious And with that, we get to think about our thinking, and then that informs more thinking that's beneficial. So I think when judgments and opinions arise, then we limit our options. So I think the highest view is like just looking at anything that we experience and go, what's here? And analyze ourself a bit as well. Like we go, oh, here's agitation, or here's anger, or here's boredom, or whatever it is. So this is like meditation practice. It helps us to get a hold of the mind. And once we're able to hold and keep in that still point for glimpses of time, usually for most people, then we go, oh, okay, now I've got spaciousness. Let's see what's arising out of the spaciousness. Or maybe it's joy, or maybe it's kindness, or maybe it could be any kind of disturbing emotion, but it could be also lots of positive emotions. So we are the one driving our lives, yeah? Like we're on the bus and we're the driver of the bus. So we can just decide, okay, if I'm on a bumpy road, maybe I'll go try a different road that's less bumpy. Or we can go, oh, I'm on the bumpy road. It must be someone else. Like I'm driving, but someone else put me here. So no, you drove there. So it comes down to this concept, like if we take absolute ownership and responsibility and we're accountable for everything that is in our life, then we are free to make choices. And if it's the others, we blame, we justify, we deny, it wasn't us, it was the dog ate my homework, whatever it is, right? Then we are in a life of being a victim. And then we're very limited in our choices. In other words, we don't have freedom. Where the target is the circumstances and it's someone else's fault. And so, of course, that's a really easy out because and it is easy. It's hard to be in it, right? But it's easy because I don't have to have the effort to look at myself. Yeah, I can always point the finger outside. And yes, sometimes calamities and unfortunate life events occur and we have what's in front of us. So we start with what we've got. We keep curiosity and try to have the aspiration of change will come. And change will come. This is what happens. You can be sure of that, right? And when good times are happening, then change will come. And when bad things are happening, change will come. That's the constant. So it's up to us then to say, what's our relationship to it and how do I work with this? So again, this kind of comes back to the teachings of impermanence, that nothing lasts. And that's good news and bad news, depending on where you are. Knowing that that is the thing, then of course we don't have to get too hooked on it, that it's permanent, because it will change. I think that's a really good teaching and that helps inform our view of reality, and we can make a meaningful choice that supports and enlivens the spirit and helps support others in their journey. So again, it comes back to compassion as well.
Yeah. I'm wondering if there's a component in what you've just described also, where we have to come to ourselves first internally and also maybe do some of that internal work to be able to have that capacity for holding that highest view. I feel very often when we ourselves are in a very reactive state, we are not regulated, we're not balanced, it is difficult to have that perspective to step back and say, take a moment, take a breath, or think of it from different perspectives. Do you find that with your work, there is a component of coming to that inner place first? I want to say clean in front of our own doors first before we come out into the world with that.
Yeah, for sure. And we don't necessarily have to go and sit in the cave for 30 years and then pop our head out. I'd say like the Dharma is around this idea that we approach in the world, in life. We don't always have the option to go on some retreat and of course, if you need to recalibrate, then yeah, go into nature, go have some time, or work with a great therapist or someone who can help you to connect to yourself and work through the challenges that are there. And of course, if we're in crisis, it's very hard to have surplus, right? Or if we're exhausted and we need to rest and we just keep pushing, of course, it's going to get worse. So it's that idea of being able to slow down and come to presence and then get support if we need it. And if we regulate it, then of course we have surplus for others. And if we're in survival, we're busy freaking out about the past or the future, then we're not so useful. But yeah, of course, one should look at how do you work with your disturbing emotions or where are the problems and help transform that. So I think working with a really good somatic therapist or whichever therapy out of the 1400 you want to choose, and you can start somewhere. But I think the idea is to start. And sometimes people lament the past, or they think, oh, again, it's like the victim concept. And if we're just there in that, of course, there's not much room to grow. But if we say, okay, here it is, here's the thing I'm wrestling with, then, okay, what am I doing about it? That's again, do I take responsibility? Do I take action? Or do I sit in the thorns, sit in the rose bush and wondering, oh, how come I'm here? And I'm the one who sat in it in the first place. But no, someone else. So again, it's this idea like we can blame and get nowhere. Or we can go, hey, I think I'll get up, I'll pull the thorns out of my backside and move forward. So yeah, this is the thing. Of course, these things happen, right? There's always going to be challenge. That's normal. And go, okay, so now what do I do about it? It's always a choice.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to say too, there was this great little story about this idea of compassion, and they had one of the Buddhist monks that were part of the Chinese occupation, and the terrible thing would happen in Tibet, and most of the people got out, and the Dalai Lama was interviewing this High Rinpoche, this teacher, and he was kept by the Chinese and tortured, and just the most horrendous things happened to him for years and years. Eventually, somehow he escaped and got away. And then the Dalai Lama said to him, what was it like for you to be in this terrible situation? And he goes, there was a few times I was really in trouble. Make it up, it was really hard. And there were times I was really on the verge of being in big trouble. And he's, and the Dalai Lama was like, you might have lost your life. And he goes, no, I was really in trouble of losing compassion at times because I was being tortured. And I had to find the little bit of glimpse of compassion for the people harming me. So it just goes to show us, wow, like that's impressive, right? And that's your practice. That means that if you are really accomplished, then, bad things happen and you go, how interesting. Yeah. And okay, what now? I got some raw materials I can work with. How interesting. Rather than, they're doing it to me or whatever it is. And I'm not just saying people are in like an abusive or the wrong kind of relationship or they're being harmed. You don't just go, just have compassion. Yeah, of course, God-given right to protect your body and mind and get out of those situations. But I'm saying for the everyday life, and we're faced with opportunities to grow and to work with what's there. So it's a fine line, yeah. It's common sense too. And often if you see on the outside, if the others are disturbed when you're with, say, someone else, then maybe there's something to look at. And if you see the others are uplifted and joyful around you, then it's probably good. So the outer world would give the reflection sometimes when we don't see it. So it's about being, okay, what's happening? What's the signals coming towards me? And then I can make decisions based on that.
Yeah, good point. And I do feel that each of us can take some steps, little steps in our lives to get started on that journey, and be that through some of the things that you did, like working with meditation or other things, however that comes into our lives, to start taking that personal accountability and come out of victim mode and into actually taking a bit of, I want to say, charge of our lives, looking at things, being curious about things, and starting to make some of those changes. So thank you for sharing that. And if our listeners are curious, they want to know more about the community you created, IICT, or your upcoming documentary, I know you also have a podcast coming. How can our listeners connect with you and find these amazing projects that you're working on?
Yes, you'd go to my website. So it's lawrenceellyard.com. And I think they'll be in the show notes or whatever. And then the IICT is myiict.com. So myiict.com. And you can find out about the accreditation and that community. And we're growing all the time. And we'll obviously post on my website the stuff to do with the new Wu documentary as it comes. And we'll make all those announcements as it unfolds. But it's really exciting because we've got some incredibly great names that are already come part of that project. And it's like the movie The Secret that came out 20 years ago in 2006, and now we're here like 2026. A lot of the people that are in that movie are in the new Wu, but also lots of new people and talent and technologies and practices that help heal the world, right? It's not the old Wu, it's the new Wu. So that's the idea, that we want to also bring the other younger generations up who are doing incredible work as well. So it's like shining a light on all the people that are making that contribution in the world, and seeing then people, I think, come out from seeing this film and then they'll go, oh, wow, okay, there's so many options. And that's good. So that if we can get people to wake up and see that possibilities, then, we've done a good job.
Wow. I love it. That sounds like such a fantastic documentary. And of course, I really enjoyed The Secret too when that came out. So I can't wait to see your film, and we'll keep our listeners posted on the timeline of that and when they can connect with that. And I just want to thank you for being here today, Lawrence, and sharing your wisdom, parts of your journey, and also your experiences with our listeners. I feel this is part of what we're all building, is sharing this information, as you said, making it accessible around the world so that people can become more informed and they can make choices with a lot of that information that's already out there, but sometimes very hard to find in one place. So thank you for taking the time and joining me today.
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks everyone for tuning in today. Of course, I appreciate you as well. And if you end up watching the documentary or you are connecting with IICT or you listen to Lawrence's podcast when it comes out, let us know here on the podcast what your experience have been. I'm always curious to hear from our listeners, and you can reach out to us on our website, of course, or on any of the socials. We always love to hear what your experiences are. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We will hear you next time. Take care and be well. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Jōrni Podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Jōrni on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejorni.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.